Hey everybody, it is Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and I'm so excited today for a bunch of reasons. First and foremost, that I'm going to show you step by step how you can create at home this gorgeous vintage old school schoolhouse. That's we're painting like totally like old school schoolhouse with the school bell and everything in the fall. So it's going to get all your fall feels plus your nostalgia. I think you're really going to love this painting and you're going to really enjoy your results because I've got a lot of new techniques that I'm going to be showing you in here. If you check the description below, you're going to see a lot of stuff that's helpful. The first thing you're going to see is that this is a CAC collaboration. So if you search the hashtag Love Fall Art 2019, it is going to pull up a whole bunch of videos from other people who made amazing fall themed paintings or projects or cards or sculptures or blown glass. You just never know what they're going to make just for you to watch. It's kind of like a free video art festival. Also, there's a link to the website where there is so much extra help and tips and insight and things that you need for this. There's a traceable, there's the grid if you're going to use that. There's extra infographics about grass and how to paint different techniques on here. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hey guys.
He keeps me company during these videos, even when we're not live. So we're going to be hanging out and he's going to be making sure that I'm giving you guys all the information you need, tracking me with our cameras, zooming in on the action, making sure you don't miss anything. I really just can't wait any longer to get started on this painting. So get your paint, get your brushes, come back and meet me at the easel right now. We're going to paint a fall schoolhouse. So let's look at the materials we're going to be using in today's really fun old schoolhouse theme project. I have a 9x12 artist board here. It is pre-gessoed, ready to paint. I used a watercolor pencil to put some intentions and wishes on here. I have support and love for all teachers, healing for Rebecca, good education for all children all over the world, relief from student loans, and then as I have been wishing for myself lately, and John's going to tease me about, I would like to be a Disney artist officially.
Oh, I would love it too.
I would love it too. We'd be so good. Over here, we have the acrylic paint colors, phthalo blue, phthalo green, cad yellow medium, cad red light, cad red medium, dioxazine purple, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, Mars black, and I have put out a little titanium white. I will be using artist knives from my set in this just to help me get the bark and also mix colors. And then for the leaves, I'm going to be using my cloud brushes because they make also a really good impasto brush. There's a whole bunch of weird things, John, that came up that these brushes were good for. Apparently, they're really good if you're into ceramics and you need to be able to do a scumbling or scratching technique with the glazes. I've been hearing from everybody that they really like it and they really do an amazing scumble.
I believe it.
And then we found out that they're really good at painting impasto, which means like with thick paint. And it gives you an alternative to doing palette knives because sometimes that's a little more challenging to get those little kind of perfect little dots with your palette knives. Now I'm going to go ahead and just take my water and go back and forth. And as you can see, the watercolor pencil lifts quite easily. You know, so that can go out into the ether as you would want. And then I'm going to come over here and mix my first base color. I'm going to take an artist knife and I'm going to pull out 1 part phthalo blue and 1 part phthalo green. And I mix them together equally. Really, really like the two of them together. And then I'm going to take a small part of this and mix that into my white for the sky color. Give me a nice amount of my sky color.
Oh, yeah.
It'll help also the trees and things behind it really pop because that is going to just play so lovely against those fall colors, John.
Mm-hmm.
Only we could get nature to do that. Nature should be more helpful. And I just kind of paint this in. This isn't something at this stage that you've got to paint in too neatly. It's just your first layer of paint. You would call this a ground, right? You're underpainting, and it gives us a nice surface that the paint can stick to. It makes sure all the white of the canvas is gone. And it's also going to make gridding in much easier. Now, if you check the description below, not only is there all the materials listed in that description, but there's a link to our website. And if you go there, every resource I'm going to mention or talk about today will be available. And you will be able to access a traceable, which is an easy way of transferring that on. And there's even a video about how to use a traceable. So we're not even expecting you to know how to use it yet if you don't.
Yeah.
And then also the grid, so you know the measurements and layout that we're going to be using. Not to mention the step-by-step quick guide and technique quick guides to help you kind of tune in what you're doing as an artist and get more successful. So please, 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 it would just be my greatest honor if you would take advantage of all those extra resources, because I'm sure it's going to help you enjoy what you're doing in your painting experience even more. I'm really bad at it. John hears me about it all the time. Now I'm going to dry this because it's going to make it easier to draw in my grid, and then therefore get my image in the same aspect ratio as the original design. So just a quick note on gridding. I'm going to show you I have a little reference here, and I'm going to show you what it is. So on your reference, you're going to have a little picture that tells you where your grid marks are at 2 inches, 4.5 inches, 7 inches, 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches. And then what you're going to do is you just draw what is in that square on your surface, which means you don't have to sit there and be able to just like freehand the whole thing. All you've got to deal with is a small line or small triangle. And if you're ready to start practice your drawing, it is a great way to begin. Okay, so we're going to do this real quick. I'll measure all these in and sketch it in, and you do the same at home. Okay, so I just put the basic shape of the schoolhouse in. That way I knew where it was. I used chalk in a T-square. This is the kind of chalk that you get in, like, for kids' chalk for chalkboards. And these little plastic T-squares are available anywhere. This one's Artist Loft. You can get that at Michael's, but you can, again, find these online in a lot of locations. Now I'm going to begin to put in the leaves and all the wonderful fall color. But what I might want to do before I do that is to clean up my extra chalk lines, because I don't really need them right now. I just needed to know where my schoolhouse was going to be. And
Now,
we'll even,
is that just water you're using?
just water and a brush. That's why I like the kids' chalk. There's a charcoal pencil I really like, but if you press too hard, the lines stay on the canvas, and nobody has enjoyed that very much. So for the next part, I'm going to mix a really pretty yet dark purple color. So I'm going to take out this purple, and I'm going to get a little bit of my cadmium red into it. And it warms it up. I feel like it just sort of takes it towards that fall range. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorites. And I need a good amount of it because I'm doing the thick impasto technique. So it's like a 1-to-1 mix, but I'll need 3 parts of that 1-to-1. So you can kind of see the amount I'm planning on using here. I could easily mix more if I needed it. And I'm going to grab one of my cloud brushes. This is a number 8 Art Sherpa cloud. It is a dome scumble brush. It does a very nice little wispy cloud or the edges of clouds. And it does some nice glowing candles. But again, what it also does is some fantastic leaves. So I just grab the paint like this. Isn't this fun, John?
Yeah.
He's like, really, I pay the bill. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to begin the deep colors that I might be seeing. And you can always grab a little bit of white if you need to sort of reveal the color something is. This is my dark undercolor. And I'm going to bring this up. Let me grab my chalk and I'll show you kind of my idea of where it's going to come. I'm going to bring this up in a very wandering way. And I want to make sure that I'm leaving sky peeking through, because that's going to help it feel like a fall day. You can see him just tapping those down. There's a lot of this tapping. And you're going to do this color through this shape all the way through.
Yeah.
Notice, and I'm sure John's capturing it, the thick texture that I'm using and the way I'm just tapping down the paint.
Yeah. Is that called impasto?
That is called impasto. And it's impossibly fun. It really is, though. Now, it's okay if you get your leaves a little bit up into where your schoolhouse is going to be. Right, so you can get it right up there. It can encroach on your chalk lines. The chalk lines are just a guide to help you with your triangles and your squares, which is all your schoolhouse is.
Nick, can I ask you about something here?
You can ask me
A
about
lot of
anything here.
folks ask this question, and I actually didn't understand it at first either.
Okay.
Right now, you're doing a really careful job of painting around the outline of that building.
I'm trying to.
Why don't you just paint in the background all over the place and then paint the building in?
Paint so thick.
Oh, so it'll leave
So it'd
that.
be, yeah, if you're painting a good heavy body paint and you paint thick, it will remain quite bumpy. A good heavy body paint will.
Okay.
I'm gonna add some. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm
No,
making tree shapes, guys. Tree
I
shapes are important shapes.
I also seem to remember you were also said something that there are certain like student paints don't cover as well, right?
Right. Or the student paint will level as you paint with it. As I come down here, I'm going to get more into my purple, and I may even get some of my white into it, which is sort of interesting. And I'll go ahead and just hit this higher purple coming down our little treehouse. I haven't rinsed my brush, and I'm still just dabbing all of that out. This is a very impressionistic way of painting. So if anyone had wanted to try this, this is a good first painting to try Impressionism on.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
You can see I'm just enjoying. Sometimes it's fun to get like an unexpected color like a blue and get some white in it and put it like a few places down here to talk about the shadow. See how I just did?
Yeah.
These little pops of color really are yummy. I'm rinsing out right now. And I'm going to carry a little bit of this over somewhat to the other side. But interestingly enough, the undercolor will be the burnt sienna in my cad red medium. So kind of that deep burnt leaf color. Because, and I know probably everybody in like Kansas City or Michigan, places that have really intense fall colors, know these trees are like their own palette.
Mm.
And so making sure that each one feels like it's its own specific color range can be really effective. And when you put like other kind of bright red things over here, it'll really help it kind of pop and feel like that deep red tree that you sometimes get. And if I want to darken some of it, I just come in with a little bit of blue. See how that deepens the color?
Yeah.
And I put that right there. Just deepening that a bit towards that corner of the schoolhouse. Okay, so now we're going to get into the green part of the foliage. Try to make sure that this is somewhat dry so it's not blending all into your green because you want bright, bright colors over here. And I'm going to begin this deep down with a little bit of the phthalo green and burnt sienna. And you can see I'm just getting it right on my brush. And I'm going to come up this corner. You can see that's a dark green. That's green in the shade, isn't it? You'll find in the shade greens can get real deep.
Yeah. It's important to have that depth of contrast.
I feel like it's super helpful. And again, you can see that we're just using the brush to keep that sort of textural like leaf shape going. Rinse out a bit. And now I'm going to add my green to a bit of yellow here. So I've got my cad yellow and my phthalo green. And they really make a very nice bright color, as you can see here. And we're going to come up and hit that really fun sense of green and yellow. And then a little bit of the green orange, which is really interesting when we do that. But to do that, we've got to get this in. And we'll take this tree. And I like to bring this down so I'm blending the two areas.
Yeah.
And to create some foliage that integrated. One more yellow. I'll come up the side here. And taking that up to there. And I am loving this.
I love it too.
Remember to relax while you're painting and breathe deeply. You'll notice I'm grabbing like a little more yellow as I go up, making the tree a bit brighter. And I am trying to sort of cover that far side. And you get that to exactly where you like it. Don't worry about all the delicate details that come on the inside, right? Because as we move forward, we're going to be adding those in. Take a minute, step back, stretch, look at your painting, and consider what's going on.
Mm.
So when you're really happy with what you've got, you can start adding in the brighter and lighter colors. And I'm going to start going right on in to my red. So there's my cad red, and I'm going to let a little of the purple pick up into it for this next bit. That way we're transitioning into brighter and brighter space. So I'm going to come here and I will make these little leaf marks, little plops, which is fun, you can see. It is as satisfying as the dot painting, but without the precision. Sometimes it's hard to maintain the precision on stuff. It'd be really challenging.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that my tree shapes look like trees. Got to get a couple layers in before I try to get my trunks in. Because it's about making the trunks feel very embedded into the foliage. You can really easily half step if you need to between the doxazine purple. So like as I get closer to the shading area on the tree, the schoolhouse, you'll see me just pick up a little purple into my red, and you can kind of see like half step it up there. Lots we can do to really enjoy ourselves.
Yeah.
Load that up on the brush. I would say my biggest goof on these like art boards, John, is that I tend to go around the corner and make like a mess.
I really like how impasto this is.
Isn't that fun?
Impasto.
Impasto. And it feels like those really bright, delicate trees, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I really like it very much. Just tapping that in and trying to make sure that my tree shapes look like tree shapes. Don't paint out all your dark value. You need dark value. And I can come back with a little of the purple in there and make sure that some of this has that deep shading that I'm looking for. Now, I need to dry this completely, and then I'm going to put my trunks in, and then I'm going to show you how to easily do the bark, and then we're going to finish out the leaves for what is the quintessential fall foliage that you're going to love painting. You guys ready? Let's dry it.
All right.
So when that's dry, it's going to be, let me put in the basis for my trunks, and I'm going to use a number 4 round to sort of start this off. That's this number 4 Art Sherpa round. It's like a 4,000 round number 4 if you're looking for it anywhere. I'm going to load up with my pure black paint. And what you're seeing me do here is I grab just a drop of water and I swirl this around. And what I'm doing is I'm thinning or modifying the heavy body paint's consistency so it flows off my brush a little smoother. I'm going to come right here and I'm going to make pretty straight trunk, but it might curve a little bit this way. There we go. And then I'm going to paint that in. Take that brush stroke down to improve the coverage. These are pretty delicate trunks, as trunks go, but you need to have room for it to take the palette knife bark technique. So you want to have at least be like 1/4 of an inch, right? Thick, just so you have enough room. Branches are also super important, so let's bring a branch kind of at an angle here, thick enough for the knife. And I may bring another one up here.
Now, the thickness of that really is dependent on how hard you press.
Yes, the harder you press with your brush, the thicker the line will get. The lighter you press, the lighter the line will get. And
Now,
the other factor is making sure it's thinned enough, but not too thinned with water to flow off your brush.
and you also, if I may,
You may.
you have to make sure it's thoroughly dry
That
because,
for this, otherwise you'd be dragging all the paint underneath through it.
right. So, yeah, because you did that impasto stuff earlier. So if it's not dry, I
You're
mean,
going to be having an adventure.
you know how I feel about drying paint.
I do. We all know. So I put this second trunk kind of at an angle, and I'm sure you've seen this in trees in your area, the way that they do this. I'm going to bring out a branch here. And let's take another little second branch that kind of comes up this way, because these will be peeking out from the foliage. And it'll help us get that sense of the trees. The other place that we need a nice tree is over here in our green. It's going to go from down here in the green to up right about here. Sometimes pulling the stroke down is easier than pulling it up. Always just pay attention to how comfortable you are when you're painting. Comfort, 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 comfort.
Yeah. So you don't throw anything out of whack.
You know? And if you're, painting this for your teacher as a gift this year, definitely let us know. Share it with us. Or if you're a teacher's group, getting together and painting this to celebrate what you do. I'd love to see that as well. All right. So when I have it in like that, I am ready to do the palette knife work. So let's get your palette knife, and I'm going to meet you right back here, and we're going to do that next step. Okay. To get this wonderful bark texture, I like my diamond-headed knife. It's very sharp. It's got a good edge. And the thing to remember is that the side that you load it to is the side that you're going to be able to stroke on. So if I'm trying to stroke from the left side of the trunk this way, I have to load the paint on the right side. Oh no, the left side of my artist knife. See? I like to get it into a thin bead. That's what that looks like. You can kind of see that thin bead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to come here and very delicately, it's at almost like a 45-degree angle, and the pressure that I touch it in is light. And you're just pulling across. And sometimes I've got to reorient my surface, so I have an easier time doing it. There we go. And just come up, and you can see I'm just lightly touching, just leaving some paint. I need to get a little bit more to do my branch. I might. And I'm going to come here, check the bead. All right, let's do these here. And they're interesting. They are from the other side. So they're from the right-hand side going left. Pull out a little white paint to work with. So I'm going to be loading on this side of the knife, dragging this way. And it's about getting a very fine bead. That small little scrapey amount of paint. From here. And it's, sometimes you'll find you have like directions that you have an easier time stroking to. This is definitely my more challenging direction. But you're going to want to definitely just lightly touch. and bring that across. And you can see how that second line actually makes two trees really definitively. Now, the thing that you've got to do is be easy with yourself. So, like, say you get a little off your line. Remember, you can come back with the brush and clean that up, can't you? Look at that.
Yeah.
So you keep the bark, but you don't get off your line. Don't panic, though. Just realize it's all fine. Now we've touched just a little bit of bark, and we've got that little kind of white marking on there. And that really helps it pop. And hopefully you can really see your trees at this point. Isn't that fantastic? So you step back and look at that, see if there's anything that you really want to, fix. Like, I think I might want to come in and now with my brush by hand, kind of break up some of that white paint. See how I'm doing?
Yeah.
So if it got too heavy-handed anywhere, pretty easy to rough it back up with a brush and touching it. You don't have to stress out too much. I find I can just hand touch anything I need. And it all comes together really well. Now, onward, my friends. Rinse out your tree leaf brush quite well and make sure you've got an artist knife that's clear, because we're going to make some oranges. We're going to have steps through the oranges. We're going to go through that, and then we are going to hit with highlights. I'm going to take a little bit of my red away and quite a lot of my orange, and I'll sort of fold those into each other. And that's like a nice little half step between the cad red medium and the cad red light. I'm also going to take a small amount of my orange. Well, it's really a lightish red over here to get this very bright, as you can see, light color. And I probably will have to get a little bit like yellow out later, but for right now it's pretty good. So we'll see how far we can get. And we're going to be picking up highlights where the sun is catching it, where the leaves are thinner, all that interesting stuff is going on. And we're going to begin that with our orange. And just tap a couple places where that orange foliage is. Bring it up around here. And that will help pull these trunks into your tree, which you're wanting to do. Kind of wonderful. Now I'm going to make a little run of orange that's like a clump coming down here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just like how the impasto-y layers just keep building and building and building and make a very thick tree.
Just a really beautiful tree. Bring this orange through here. Maybe a leaf there. And as we come out here, I'm just picking it up and putting along the roof. I am trying to make sure that some of my blue sky kind of is having a stick out moment, even though I'm going to take some of this tree up off the canvas up here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to really show what we're looking at. As we're going. You can kind of see that little basis of that. I'm going to just wipe this off, not even rinse this out, and I'm going to go get my much lighter color that I mixed. And I'm going to come here and tap out those lighter colors. Look at that.
Whenever you say tap out, I think of
Wrestling?
Sherpa in the WWE. Oh, submission hold.
Yeah. No, I'm much more of a person who would flip somebody. One my move. Clotheslining.
What was it? Was it DDT from the top of the ropes?
Yeah.
I had friends who were super into it, but you know, I as a young person, I was doing other kinds of martial arts, so it was hard for me to see the beauty of wrestling.
Well, I think we have a lot of wrestling fans in our audience.
I love wrestling. I just as
Our
a young
own
person,
moderator Viridian is a wrestling fan.
as a young person, I didn't have the appreciation I do as an adult.
As a young person, none of us have the appreciations we do as an adult. That's like the very definition of being like a young person. Now I'm going to rinse out and wipe off. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some pure CAD red. And I'm going to come through here and tap a little bit of this a few places. It's such a bright, noticeable color that it will pull things into an interesting place in our mind. You know what we're doing? And if you have
Yeah,
to put out more, because you literally can use every drop of your paint. You know, ugh, got my finger right in the paint there. So let's look at that. That I'm liking the look of that. And
I
that's what
love it.
you want to just look at your tree every once in a while and be like, do I like it? And then be like, yeah, I like it. It
I
looks
like the
good.
tree.
Got a little CAD red medium again. Such a nice color. Because we're going to hit a little bit of this over here. So I'm going to get a little of this on here. And this is kind of that deep rust red tree. You guys all probably know that tree. I've seen that tree. If not in your own yard, in somebody's yard, or in a picture, or on those Google photos that go through your TV. So just this bright, interesting red little tree. You can always half step here with a little bit of the brown and make sure this blends through kind of nicely. And I think mostly we've got it there. Rinse out very vigorously. Make sure you've got all this color out of your paint, because what you do next, you'll want to have a lot of control over. I'm going to take a little of my green over to my yellow, and I'm going to get a very light color. I'm bringing these leaves up over that. I'm going to put out some more yellow.
Yellow up the tree a little.
I got to yellow up my tree. I got to get those little tender kind of aspen looking leaves going. You know what I mean?
I do.
You do. 'Cause
I
you
know
can.
I know the leaves you speak of.
You're going to see me just adding more and more yellow as I'm going up. I might bring some of it down here. You can see it just pulls the tree together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it's the combo of these trees that's so important. The way that their little colors play against each other just really is impactful. Just pulling this down here. Here we go. I'm going to wipe off, not rinse out. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my yellow that has just a hint of green, but I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to get some of the orange into it. It's a weird thing, but when you see it on the green, you'll go, oh yeah, I remember when trees do that. And they do kind of do that little bit of orangish green. Even though, you know, there's a lot of contrast between these two, it doesn't necessarily always guarantee that the colors will feel that muted. Oftentimes, you will go through something like this. Now I'm going to rinse out vigorously. I'm going to dry this and then add this really bright yellow and white. And the only way to get it bright enough is to dry it first.
Right.
When you have that dry enough to take the next layer, what I like to do is grab a little bit of my yellow. Only if any green gets into it, I would only want the smallest amount of green. And I come over to my white. I'm going to tap these very light little leaves out. Right up here at the top. See these little top line leaves? Just top line leaves. Here. Even go in front of that's excellent. Really pretty. When I have that in, I can put my front little kind of shrubbery here. And I can also bring some color really close into the house before I put in its underpainting. So those are things I'm super ready to do.
Who doesn't like a good shrubbery?
The Knights of Nate, I don't know. So I'm going to take just a little of my purple over to my CAD red medium and load that up, sort of thoroughly mix it, and come over here. And I'm going to make a little, this is a little bush.
Just peeking out.
Peeking out, doing little bush things, as they do.
A shrubbery!
Can you imagine going to this school? I kind of went to a school like this when I was a girl. My parents pulled me out of public school and put me in a school called the Road School, a private school in California. Dr. Charlotte Malone was its originator. And it had a bit of this feel to it, though it was not nearly this cute. It was in a strip mall, so. But we visited an old school that was this cute. But it was just several grades all together in one space, and it had that kind of prairie element to it. Now, when I get that dark value in, I'm going to come back with just a little bit of my pure CAD. And tap just a bit of the little shrubbery out. So I got the little top here. Oh, that was nice. And I'll come down here. You can see it's just a little bit of an accent. That's really lovely. That beautiful little shrubbery there. At this stage, I might take my number 4 round.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to do is kind of get my base colors really up close to the house. So if I've had the purple and the red, I'm going to get a little bit of that. Even though I'm going to paint outward, it just is going to help make sure that there isn't a really weird line.
Oh, just a nice crisp shadow line back there?
Yeah, I just think it looks better overall when you're doing it. So
that makes sense.
You just go through with what you've got and then kind of come back and give it that crisp line where it needs it. You don't want to take out any of your sweet leaf work. Don't do that.
Don't touch those sweet leaves.
As Napoleon Dynamite would tell you. Sweet.
Those sweet leaves.
I can sometimes blend that in just even using my brush. And since this is already sort of wet, I can make sure that this just tucks fully into the school. And then just tap blend. See, I just blended it. Got power. You got the power. All right. Now's a good time to step back, take it in, stretch your shoulders, breathe deeply. Remember, you get into a particular kind of almost meditative state when you're painting, and it can cause you to lose track of time and not feel pain, which is why a lot of people go to it for pain management. But that also means that you have to make a practice of stopping and doing self-care so that you don't overdo what you've got going on and wear your body out, right? So let's take that moment to sort of stand and stretch and breathe deeply. Okay, for the next stage, we're going to put the underpainting in for the schoolhouse and for the hill. This is going to be kind of super and fun and easy. It's a good time after that to clean up your palette, change your water, or do any of those art maintenance things you've got going on. But first, let's paint everything in. So I have a little bit of burnt sienna and Mars black, and I also have my phthalo blue, and I'm going to use those colors for the next part of this. Now, I'm going to take my burnt sienna here, and I'm going to add a little bit of black to it, and that's going to make my basic hill color. Hill basic. Right there. And I'm going to put a little burnt sienna out near my blue. And that's going to be schoolhouse basic. So a little bit of those two together becomes my underpainting for the white weathered schoolhouse paint. So I'd say it's about 2 parts phthalo blue to 1 part burnt sienna to get that range of color. Now I'm going to grab a number 8 cat's tongue because it's a nice size brush. You could grab any bright or any brush that will help you paint this all in, give you a nice edge, and also not take you too long to do it. So schoolhouse is all this color right here. I mean, like thinning the paint and prepping it to flow nicely off my brush. I like to paint the edges as neatly as I can. That does help with the architecture. And yeah, we're going to absolutely do a kind of like little thatched roof up here. But and I'll paint my red behind this, but like after everything is in. Because I'll need to use my T-square for sure. T-square, T-square. One of my tricks on the roof is to use my brush marks to let me know where things are. So sometimes you'll notice that having transparent paint or whatever is actually of a benefit because you can use it to your favor.
I like the layers that these under what do you call them?
Underpaintings.
Underpainting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And underpaintings add. I like how they add that extra depth.
They really do. I really feel strongly that they add a lot of extra depth. I've got a trim line around the schoolhouse. John actually probably has put this together. This is painted like our first house. Remember we had the white boards and the blue trim?
I do.
And all the gingerbreading?
Uh-huh.
I kind of like did a tribute to our first place with this.
Pretty cool.
I thought so. I think we even had a red door. That's all in, right?
Yeah.
It's doing pretty good. I might go ahead and clean up this little bit of chalk that's peeking up. Now the hill is just the other color.
Oh. Makes it easy.
Makes it so easy.
That's just your underpainting done.
Right. So that when you go to do the grass, everything will be very fall grass. And remember, there's that extra infographic all about grass here on the webpage that I really, really want you to take advantage of if you're having any trouble with painting your grass, because it's got a lot of extra help information that could make a very big difference in your outcome. So once I paint that basic color all in, I'm going to go ahead and load up a dark color, and I'm going to just, knowing that this hill is going to have grass, I'm going to go ahead and just do this first upward stroke just to make sure that there's a line from the solid color. It's the beginning, but it's an important beginning. And we will put some of it in front of the schoolhouse, but for right now, we just need this little bit to help it not have a weird cutoff. Because that's what will happen, is it'll get a strange cutoff going, and you'll see it, and it'll bug you, and it'll bug you, and it'll bug you. Okay. So after this, the next step, we're going to put in the structure of the house. We're going to add the wood boards. I'm going to show you a cool trick with a small brush. I'm going to show you how dry brushing can create some pretty intense distressed wood. We're going to use some tape in the T-square to make our edges straight, because sometimes a straight line is really challenging. And then I'll show you how to paint in the hill, and we're going to be done. And you're going to have this gorgeous vintage school-inspired painting that you can hang on your wall or give as a gift, and you're going to be so happy with it. So for the second part here after this step, what we're going to do is we're going to mask off the area around the main part of the schoolhouse. Now I'm using painter's tape, which is a low tack tape. A trick that you can do if you only have like regular masking tape is to like take this and tap this up and down on something that would have lint, like your jeans or your sofa. And that's kind of like a quick way to make lower tack tape. And I'm going to go around the object that I want to mask off, because I want to be able to paint some longer and straighter lines to make the wood beams. Then I could stop my brush at the edge. So this is an easier way of doing this. So now I can paint quite confidently, taking a long stroke across and not worrying about dealing with this angle or dealing with these turns. And I can make a nicer wood. Over here, I've refreshed my palette and just put out the colors I would need for the rest of the video. I think the other color I probably would like is some burnt sienna. So let's start there. Burnt sienna, yellow ochre, a fluid white. That's this. But you could also use a brand like this or like this to count for that. So don't feel like you're under pressure. Cad red medium, cad yellow, phthalo blue, the fluid black right here, the Mars black, and then regular titanium white. And that's how I'm going to finish that out. The other thing I'm going to use is a number 4 from my Art Sherpa line. This is a nice bright. It's very sharp, and it's going to give me very consistent dry brush little planks, especially now that I've masked it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my blue, pull it out, and get some of my burnt sienna into it. And if you mix a small amount of burnt sienna into your blue, it begins to gray it. And you don't need a lot because your brush strokes are going to be mostly white. So I'm going to just wipe this out. But you can see as I pick up the white, there's just a little bit of that sort of weathered tone to everything. And I'm going to come here and right across this top, I'm going to just dry brush this board. I'm going to come down underneath here, leaving a small amount of space, and dry brush this board. Now at this point I might flip my brush over, and you can see it's making these planks, and the spacing is being done by the brush. A little kind of weathered wood. Let's grab a little bit more of this. I haven't added really any water to my brush. And you can see I'm getting nice straight boards this way. If you're concerned about how you're going to space it under any particular part, you can start in the middle. Do you like this trick, John?
I love it. I was just sort of mesmerized by it.
It just is an effective way to get this type of look and texture in without stressing yourself out. I was thinking the other day, looking at digital artists, how they create brushes to help ease their workload. And somebody was like, oh, that's cheating. And I just thought, no, that's being an artist. When you figure out something that helps you get a technique or something accomplished, the easier part of that is that, you're an artist and that's what you're trying to do is to create the look. The technique of how you get there is kind of irrelevant. You can see I'm just creating those little splits.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I start from the top going down to the bottom is the last plank's going to be covered by grass and staining. And so it really makes it easier for you to be able to do this. And then once you have this all done, you can come back with a little black and brown if you want. And this brush, this is again the number 4 bright. This is going to let me have a very sharp line, as you can see. It's easy to accentuate those wood beams. And I like that very, very much. It's like in a couple of places you might lose like the little separation or it's not as even as it could be. And this little going back will just reinforce
It makes
what's
it look.
there.
I think it makes it really cool.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Now I want to dry that so I can apply like some windows and some doors and some glazing. And I'm going to leave it taped. You can leave it taped. In fact, sometimes heating the tape helps remove it. And I'll give you some tips about removing tape because there's some weird tricks. Okay, now that you have the wood in and the surface is dry, make sure to touch that with your finger to make sure you're not going to be blending it. We're going to do a little shading or under the eaves glazing. Even before we put in the windows or the roof, we definitely want to get this going. And what I'm going to want to use is a little bit of my burnt sienna and my phthalo blue. And if you'll notice, they're quite transparent on their own. So I'm going to come here underneath the roof and I'm going to glaze in a little bit of that. So see, you do want to see all the paint underneath. If you're having trouble with that, you can always use this product, acrylic glazing liquid, to make your paint more transparent. Mine just happens to be pretty transparent, so I'm not having to really worry about it right now. And that's sort of the nature of phthalo green and browns, is that they can be more transparent. I'm just coming along here, making sure that this is kind of blended out. You can see I'm going to come in the corner. And that's sort of a shadow that we're going to be dealing with under the eaves. The other place I definitely want to put a shadow is I'm going to come under here and make 2 kind of little shadows over here for the windows. It's little shadings that you can put in early on that will really help what you're trying to do. To get my windows and my doors and my schoolhouse in, it can be helpful if I'm having trouble making straight lines to use my T-square. So if I know I want a window that's a particular kind of size within the building, so sometimes it helps to come down the center of your building and give yourself a guide mark. I'll use my watercolor pencil.
A
Okay.
T-square really makes that a lot easier, huh?
It does. So now it's going to be easy to size my window. So I can sit there and say, no, I want my window right here to be about that big. So they're about equal distances, right?
Mm-hmm.
On either side. And I can maybe get away with using some paint to demo that on one of my bright rounds. Let's get some black. I might even grab my fluid just to make it easy on myself. And you can be like, that's going to be the window
Yeah.
up here. And I just paint all of that in at first, just black. Because I'll come around it with blue trim once I get the window itself sort of properly in. So coming here, I'm going to want to have my door. And we'll say my door is going to be about this high in the schoolhouse, like that board right there. I'll take a little red on my brush, as you do. I might grab a little black into it to deepen it. So it's got that red base, but it's dark because I want to do a couple layers. And I'm going to look at my divider here, which comes to about the 4.5-inch mark, a center we've already determined, right? And I'm going to come a little bit the same distance on each side. Make a nice little slender door. And then if I want to make sure that I've got straight lines coming down for my door, I just do this. Because again, sometimes the straight lines are the hardest part of what you're doing. And you can get your straight lines from painting, or you can get your straight lines, from taping, or you can get your straight lines from the ruler. So I'm going to come over just a little bit from the edge of my building. And I want my windows to be a little taller up here and then end a little shorter down here. And I want them to be matched. So once I make that first window line, I'm going to bring my T-square over here and just make sure that both of my windows are kind of the same on both sides.
You got a craftsman building that one.
I would say I would definitely not put me in charge of building anybody's building.
You're doing a pretty good deal on this one.
I'm an adequate architect. I'm definitely an arty architect. Right? And if you feel like you need to come over a little bit more, it's easy enough to come back and say, "Oh, hey, I want a little more give on this side." And then I'm going to come same, and I want to leave room for the boards to show with the windows, with the door, and with the trim. You got to give enough room for all of that to happen. Do about the same here, just enough room. And it's almost the width of the ruler, which is what I do think I did last time. I just used the width of my ruler to determine what I was doing. And then I can just come across the top. And come across the bottom. And that's just a quick way that I can get these put in much easier, right? And have straighter lines where I might normally very much struggle. I'm going to take some blue and some black and mix them together, where I might very much struggle with my straight line. So we don't have to struggle. We can if we want to. We don't have to.
Just filling them in there.
Just filling in this with the blue and the black. This is the dark. It's not lit in the schoolhouse. Kids have not arrived yet. Right? I'm fascinated with schoolhouses, like ever since Little House on the Prairie. The idea that, that many grades would be in one room and that there would be so few kids. Sometimes you might need 2 or 3 coats to cover what's underneath, but trust me, it's just worth it because see now the boards have flow. If you had to do a board and stop and do a board and stop, it's real easy for them to get off alignment. And then it'll just throw off your whole schoolhouse. So I'm going to take that black and red mix that made the dark red, and I'm going to come in at first and paint the door with this darker color. Painting it all that solid color.
I like the way you're sort of shading the doors and leaving them a little kind of loose.
It is nice to give this that overall rustic feel, to paint a little bit loosely, because if you do that at this stage, it will really help you. Now, I have the blue molding here. I'm going to have red molding here, and then the door is going to have blue molding. So it'll be some interesting switching back and forth, and I will probably continue to use my T-square to control some of what I've got going on. So if I want to do blue molding, I'm going to come and get my blue and a little bit of my white, just so it'll show. Sometimes the white helps the opacity of the blue. And I'm going to come just on the outside of the window. I'm stroking this time on the edge of my brush because I don't want it to be that thick. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And again, this helps me keep my lines straight. You know how they're always like, keep your stories straight, keep your lines straight. So it's still very painterly, but that you have a little control over some of the stuff that you might feel like needs to be more orderly. With that blue molding. There you go. So you can see that is just now framed in with a blue accent, and I can come take that shadow color that I had, that is kind of a glaze, and come under here and also add a shadow under my window. Just brushing that in. Up here, I want to reflect some of the fall light, so I'm going to take a little of my burnt sienna and my cad red. It's okay if you grab a bit of the yellow. You don't want it to be bright, but you want it to feel a bit like the surrounding color. Because maybe the trees would reflect up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we did that. To do the next part, I definitely need to dry this.
So while she's drying, I'll remind you guys, don't use heat. You know why. Causes color shift, all that other kind of stuff. Okay, we're back.
That's good. Okay, now I'm going to do the molding around these objects. I'm going to paint it coming from here through here. That way I'm not dragging my ruler through wet paint. And then I will do the tops last. I'll dry it again one more time and then do the tops. So I'm going to grab my brush and I'm going to get my pure red. This is still my number 4 bright. And you'll notice I come a little bit on the inside of the window. That's because I want to keep my window overall size where it is. I'm going to use a towel and wipe off my ruler thoroughly. So this is the thing about architectural stuff is I would use triangles, I would use T-squares, I would use some type of measurement tool so that where you want straight lines, even if you're painting very expressively, you can have those. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And just any place where you realize you're going to be crossing lines and getting wet areas into wet areas, you would just, look, I love how I can bring this to the bottom because I have the tape. You would just dry it and then do the next section where you have to. If that makes sense.
I think so.
Well, because like it's hard for me to move it down from here. The T-square is coming to the edge of where it can move across the canvas from the vertical to the bottom. So I think this window is, oh, no, actually it'll work because I can do one side and the other side. I'm good.
Mm.
And I got a little long there. But if you ever go like past where you meant to take the molding, like I just did,
Yeah.
rinse out your brush. Right? Because while the door can go off, the windows need to stop at the bottom of the windows. I can just come back with my nice brush and clean that up. Now I will just do the other side of the ruler. And that way I'm not dragging through wet paint, but I'm also not having to dry before resetting everything. That's some nice molding, right?
Yeah.
The top molding and the bottom molding is thicker. I'll come right here. I'm going to load up with my red. And I'm going to stroke this time on the wide. And that's wide molding. Look at you, all good at carpentry and such. John, I'm realizing something.
Would you relax?
I goofed on the door because it's got to be blue.
Well, you can just go paint the door blue.
No, I mean the door was red and the molding was blue. I wonder if I should do the door blue then and the molding red since I'm already here. I don't know. Oh, artist problems. Now this one I'm going to come up a bit because I don't want the bottom molding to be too deep. I come up almost the distance of the brush itself. There we go. I like that. I may dry it because I really wouldn't, I would like the door to be blue. I mean, the door molding to be blue and the door itself to be red. I kind of like that juxtaposition. So I'm going to just fix it so I can do that. And I guess what I would take away from this is just know, like, as you're going along, you may do something that's weird and it's okay. Just take a deep breath, dry the paint, paint over it. So it's the easy fix. Gonna be a little purple, but that's okay. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to get my blue and a little bit of my white so that the blue has a bit of coverage. And I'm going to come here and just go right back over this with that color. And you can see I can paint that right back out. Pull that up. And it's even okay if a little bit of it's actually nice how that works out. But sometimes it's of benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can come here. Come this way with the T-square just a little bit above the door. Make sure this is squared up. These are always the challenges, making sure everything is lined up. Grab a bunch of that same blue and just come across with a thicker blue stroke to make the top molding. Okay, once everything is dry, then we can put in some reflections, paint the finishing part of our door, and also get the sign in on our school. Oh, that was not as dry as I'd hoped. That ever happens to you? Just clean it up. Sometimes when you dry, it is not as dry as you hope. So above the door and the windows, but below the top window is our school sign. And it's going to be just a, nice black sign that takes up this space. It goes a little longer than the window it's got above it. Dip in water. I'm just making that nice enough to kind of be right here. And that's where I get to write my word school so people know what they're coming to this place for, right?
Hmm.
I like it. On my red door, I'm going to go ahead and grab some just pure red paint, but I want to make sure my brush is really thoroughly washed out. Yep, I can look and see and be like, yep, all the filaments are clean. Always very helpful. And I'm going to come in and brush in very loosely a rough red paint job on the door. And so you can see that I'm kind of directional with the paint.
And those layers really make that just super pop.
It just really does make it super pop. And the door being red is just really attractive. I need some reflections though in my windows here. And so what I'll do is I'll take a little of my blue, a smidge of my black, and some of my white. And this is like the sky that's being reflected. I'm going to come here and just brush a little bit of sky reflection. Isn't that great?
Yeah. I like that.
Now,
Kind of makes
all of this can have a dry, and I'm going to take my paint tape off.
I kind of like it. It makes a little face going, ooh.
Because we can hit the little doorknob, the final little wet reflections and all of that after this is all done. Now, wherever you put the tape on, you're going to want to take it off the opposite way you put it on.
Where
So you
up
just
is
want to go
down
in
and left
reverse
is right.
order. Huh?
Where up is down and left is right.
Not that exciting.
Oh.
Decorative nails, not functional nails.
Ooh.
But you can see we've started to get something of a building, and we were able to paint some very straight board lines. Look at us go. That's going to be fun to get up. I can tell already.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it really, really sticks down.
Oh, you seem to have a trick.
I dig it up with my nail. It's my clever, clever trick. Now we get to put on the roof and the sideboards. So sideboards first. I'm here using your ruler again. And if you get a bunch of acrylic paint on your ruler, if it's fresh, you can usually get it off with a baby wipe. If it's dry, you can get it off with rubbing alcohol. But it'll come off, so you can keep using it. You won't have to have two different brushes, the T squares, one for painting with and one for. All right. I'm going to come here and make a nice molding.
Such a nice molding.
Such a nice blue molding. But it really helps the schoolhouse pop, doesn't it? Reminds me so much of our house. All right, I'm going to have to go like this. Sometimes because of this part of the T-square, you have to move your surface to make sure that you're good.
Bunking into the ground or something.
Yeah.
Bottom of the.
Once you get your two sides, we're going to get to be able to do our roof. And then you're like, but how am I going to protect my roof as I paint up? More tape. Tape and rulers, they're our friends. So let's bring a roof down here. Load it up a nice little bead. And I'm going to bring a little roof using my ruler to help me. Just a bit past the side of the building. Right? You gotta protect the building from the rain just a little bit. You need a little white in there. Don't worry, just go get it. There you go. And now you paint a little roof. How awesome are you?
That looks amazing.
You can come back and paint another little side of your roof. There we go. And that's our basic building kind of in. You can do all kinds of touch-ups at this stage. If you want to add more white paint to brighten up the building, you can come in and grab some just cleaner white than what you had and add some white to some of the boards, see?
Yeah.
Without damaging anything. The layers won't hurt you. So you can still have that pop. You can still have that beautiful little building sitting in the grass. I
Makes
have to
sense.
dry all this so I can tape the roof and the building down and finish this beauty off, which is some of my favorite. That's good. I have another tape tip for you.
Yeah.
You got to let your paint, if you have any heat in your hairdryer, which generally you may not want to do because it can do color shift. But if you do, or this is warm at all, even on the low setting, you're going to want to let it cool down. So, because what happens is the acrylic gets soft and even low tack tape will pull it up then.
Well, that's what I talk about. Don't use heat.
But sometimes even on low heat, there's some warmth and you really want it to be room temperature. It's a good time to like get up, take a stretch break, breathe in deeply, breathe out deeply, reheat coffee. So let's do that and we'll meet back here and I'll show you how to tape the roof. So once you've gotten all of that done and dry and you know everything is cool so you can lay your tape back down, I'll show you how you tape off the next section of the house so you can expressively and use that same board technique to do this upper part of the bell tower. So for the first part, I'm going to come here and I actually just take my tape to the corner of the roof and I'm going to come down and tape out my roof so it won't get messed up. Right? And I'll come here and again, taping just to the corner of the roof so that the tape itself makes a nice point. That's great, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to tape here to the side, making the vertical line. People are going to be like, how did you get those little boards on that bell tower? And you're going to be like, oh yeah, easy peasy. And they're going to be like, I don't really know what you mean by easy, but it can't be that. So we're going to come and put our slants in across first, and we've got our tape to protect us from having any problems. So let's load up with our white again. And you're kind of familiar with the idea, right? So we're going to come across just where this ends, but you can come above it because we're going to be bringing shingles down. And I'm going to just dry brush the boards across again. And you can see right here at the roof, that was going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Just making some of my boards whiter. And then we can put those cross beams back in like we did before. Again, much easier because we've got tape.
Gotcha.
That's all I gotta do there. Now I want to dry this so I can do the next part, which is the bell and the scene behind the bell. I'm going to grab my number 4 round again because it helps me do curves a little bit easier. And I'm going to make a decision about where my bottom board is going to be. And it is going to be right here. So first I'll just get my blue, little white. I'm using my number 4 round. And I'm just coming across here. And did not go badly, right? We got that
No.
bottom board. And that will help us like know where that stuff is going to be. I've got that molding in. How easy for me. Rinsing out, I'm going to go ahead and get some of my pad red, maybe a little of my burnt sienna, and a smidge of my blue just to deepen it. So it's just sort of a deep red. And I'm going to make a little upside down U, a little sort of U-turn right here. And paint all of that in with the red. it can take a couple coats.
Yeah.
So you might need to dry it and then hit it again one more time. As my T-square goes with my hair dryer. How you doing, babe?
Good.
This is an interesting painting how it's made, isn't it?
I love it.
Here we go. So now we've got kind of like the red trees that we're enjoying so much, sort of reflected behind that. And that really sets the stage for our bell. I'm going to go ahead and get my blue on here and make the molding that trims around the bell tower. Bell. So this would ring, the school bell would ring when it was time to come to school. Once that's done, we can take off the tape, and we take the tape off in the opposite order we put it down on.
Hmm.
And you can see that by letting the paint cool, my tape isn't pulling up big swaths of paint. And we were able to mostly keep the bell tower off the roof. You can take this time, my T-square aside for a little bit, and straighten up your roof. Straighten up your roofs! You be your own roofer right now. I like to kind of come in and define it and maybe thicken it a bit. Make it more of a focal point, if that makes sense. Because the red and blue play against each other, and the orange and blue just play against each other. Nice. And I just want it to feel more roofy. Because that's an actual thing that I just now made up. Just thickening up that roof, just so it feels like a roof. But this under straight line really is always going to help it. Now, to do the shingles, this is a really fun thing. What I'm going to do is at first, I'm going to mix a little of my burnt sienna and some of my black with my number 4 round. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to dab little dot marks.
Oh, yeah.
And even though it's all sort of the same color, that texture is also created when I do this. If you need to add a little more water, you can do. Are you having fun with that?
Me?
I feel like it's fun to show people how to do a little shingle.
Yeah. I like how I always like the layers and how impasto stuff goes down. So whenever you make little shingles that have little impasto edges, I think that's
I get asked a lot, like, why I paint with heavy body paint, since it can be a little more challenging when you're new to painting. And it's because it has the most potential, right? If I had all fluid paint, I'd have to have a bunch of other paints or modifiers or mediums to make it thicker. Whereas with the heavy body paint, I can easily thin it with water and a few mediums and have just 1 or 2 colors in the fluid aside on the rare chances that I need it.
Mm.
So it's worth getting used to. This first color is pretty dark. And then as I come up to the top, I'll go ahead and sort of paint in a little more pointed structural top. I'm going to rinse out. And I'm going to get some of just my burnt sienna, like you do.
like you do.
Like somebody do. And I'm going to make some focal shingles. See how we're doing?
Yeah.
Just to show that this is a shingled top. What is the top of this called? This little cap?
It's at the bell tower generally.
It's all bell tower?
Well, that's generally it's in that little window is a little bell where the church bell rings.
Okay.
And
But
so
that's where the bell is. But what's the
yeah,
little crowning thing here?
that's the roof to the bell tower.
I'm adding a little yellow ochre and burnt sienna mix to this side just to imply a little sunlight being on our little bell tower. Right? Why not?
Yeah.
Then we got a little sunlight happening there. And if you need another little pop, just get some white into your mix. And that can be like a really bright highlight of sunlight, right?
Yeah.
That's how I get that all totally lit. I'm going to put my vision enhancers on because the bell's a little small, but I'll show you how I put the bell in. I may even need to get a smaller brush, but we'll see if I can do it with a number 4. So when I do the bell, what I do is I do a sidebar here and a sidebar here. And then I come around and I go way up, way down, make that little horseshoe shape. Little top here. And then inside I just paint a little bell.
Little bell. That thing has an actual name. The little cradle that holds the bell.
Does it?
Yeah.
Bell Fanatics, tell us the name of this cradle. Yes, internet, we need to know. Internet always knows things even when I don't know things.
Sure, it will help you.
Well, I'm here. I can put a little doorknob, the beginnings of a doorknob in. So I take my black paint and I'm going to make a knob right here. Just a little circle. I can dry that. So now what we've got to do is add the highlights and the colors that make this seem like a metallic bell. And what I like to do first is I get a little bit of my brown. And I'm going to come here and on the arm, add just a smidge of that coming around. These are little highlights. And then I'm going to come to the center of the bell and add a little bit of this. Now, I like to make the inside sort of like in the middle of a ring, and how I do that is I come around and leaving that dark, if you see. Then I can always, if I want, drop down another little bit of the bell and a little dot. While that's having a little tack dry, I can come with my brush and load up on the tip, and I can write in the word school. You could also use a Posca pen if you were not enjoying that. I'm probably going to be really quiet while I'm concentrating.
That's okay. I'll
Is
try
it?
not to do anything like booga 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 booga.
Please don't. Lettering is its own journey. Also, like the irony of like the potential chance that I would misspell school.
SKO.
Don't. It will totally trigger my stuff. I just won't be able to even handle it.
You know what's awesome though?
Mm.
Is that because we're in editing land, no one would know. You could totally misspell it, and we would have to like just magically go back and fix it. They wouldn't know if this is the 4th or 5th time that you painted this.
That's true. I can also take this minute to add a little kind of like white dot sort of reflections to the window. And that can help it feel a little bit like glass.
Now, I'm going to give love to the Sherpettes who just rewound to find out if the Art Sherpa did indeed repaint that multiple times.
School?
Yeah, because they will have gone back and checked to see if you did.
You know what's crazy?
What?
I wouldn't even blame them. I'd be like, reasonable. I'm going to add a little mix of my burnt sienna and yellow ochre to my door, and I'll just paint that on the inside of the doorknob, letting the black kind of be like an outline to it, a little bit of a shadow. And dip my brush in water and get a little more of this, maybe even some white. And I'm going to come here and make a little reflection coming down the bell. Here. A little more. Just adding these little tones helps it feel like a brass or copper.
Mm-hmm.
If that is any indication of anything. And I'm going to get right on the tip of my brush if I can. And I will give a reflection to the lip of that bell and to the part coming down, maybe some here. Up over. And then to my doorknob. And you know what I think we deserve, John? Bubbles, because we just finished the schoolhouse.
Bubbles? Why would you
We
get
finished
bubbles?
the schoolhouse. We did it. We did. We finished the schoolhouse. We went to school, went to art school, and we painted. Ah! Feel free to give me down thumb for the singing. Oh, wait, bubbles in my coffee.
Huh.
I don't need that much glycerin in my life. Everything is fine. And then we celebrated too early anyways, because I got to do side beams.
Do you?
Yeah, but it's okay. Because I can do those right now.
You always
Have a thing.
have a thing. There's always one.
I always have a thing.
Ooh.
I'll just take this time.
But it's okay.
Because I have the ruler.
You have a ruler.
It's just a nice touch, I think, the side beams.
Yeah. I like it. Add that final little finishing touch to the bell tower.
Yeah, it just makes it look more complete. Like you thought about what you had going on a little bit.
Look at that.
All right, now I can celebrate. Celebrate again. Celebrate again. Celebrate again. Well, that was crazy. And with the glasses, I think it's a whole look. Now we're going to be doing in our grass and our hill. Remember that I have all that extra help on the website, especially around grass. So if you've been dreading this part of the painting, feel lighthearted, my friends, because that extra help and aid that you visually can need sometimes is there waiting for you. Please take advantage of it. It is wonderful and will be included in future grass videos. Share it with your friends. All right. I don't need my glasses though for the grass. Let's put in our hill and our grass and enjoy our fall schoolhouse painting. All right, let's go. So we have our little hill here and we're going to need a little path because the kids need a way to go to school, don't they, John?
They do.
You need a way to go to school. You're going to go to school. I'm going to take a number 8 cat's tongue. You could use any brush you have. It doesn't have to be a cat's tongue. And I'm going to take a little of my black and my brown and mix a slightly lighter color than the ground. And I'm going to begin to brush back and forth, as you can see, in a random way. I'm just like skip, brush, zigzagging down.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get a little of my yellow ochre into the mix. Make a slightly lighter, different tone of brown. And I'm going to come here and again, is dirt path. You can even get into like, say, a little bit of the blue and some of your white, and it makes this crazy kind of gray-green. Just a little bit of a fun path. And then it is nice to have a little bit of dark on your path, so I'll come back with a little bit of black. And make some dark values that are my dark path. Isn't that wonderful?
It is.
For this grass here, I'm going to start out, I'll finish with my number 4 round, but I'm going to begin the basis of it with my yellow ochre, my cat's tongue, and a little black. And it's going to make kind of this dark grass color. Bubble on there. And I'm going to just come through and begin to put in the dark values of the deep grass. When we're doing grass, you want to have several layers worked out. You don't want to press too hard because that'll over thicken the blade. You want to make sure you're curving your strokes curved to the right or curved to the left so that they're very random. My path, just so you know, is going to end here. So it's going to be narrowest by the school and then widen a bit as we come towards the front. There we go. I'll put in the first layer of grass. You can see I'm just doing that. I'm brushing this brushy grass. Brushy grass. You need your brushy grass. This is a grassy hill that the school is on top of. And you know, a building like this in a town would have like such a history to it.
A cool little,
Isn't it?
yeah.
A little more black in there because I want my grass still to be pretty dark at this stage. Lets me highlight a few things when I need to. I think it's fun to bend some grass over the pathway. And I'll switch to my number 4 round, wherever I put it. There it is.
Hmm.
As I'm going now, I'm going to lighten up the grass because this is dry grass, right? End of summer, dry grass. A little clump here and grow little bits here. And it's really just about making sure you're doing very uneven. You know, grass isn't all mowed, it isn't all one height. It has clumps. It goes wild. It gets blown by the wind. Like here, I might put a few kind of forward there. I love this. But I do get the feedback where people are like, I love painting, but I'm so frustrated by grass. And John's seen the guides and help guides, and they are awesome, are they not, babe?
Mm-hmm.
They are really helpful.
I love them.
Hopefully you are loving this painting.
I really like how it's turned out.
Me too. I think it's wonderful. Ah, that's a nice layer, right?
Yeah.
So now the grass. So now the grass.
Nice layer.
Sometimes you see a scene of yourself and you're like, ah. So now the grass is going a bunch of different directions, and I'm going to create a little highlighted path kind of coming down. And to do that, I'm going to take a little of my yellow, my cad yellow, and a small amount of my yellow ochre, and I kind of make a mid-range yellow between these two. Right? It's not a full cad yellow because that's a little too bright. I'll wipe off the excess, and I'll even maybe get into my white here so I can get nice, tiny little stalks coming forward. And I'm going to make a little run. Of grass that is kind of in sunlight a bit. You can put a few bits out here, but I like to focus it along the path. A little more of that. A little bit could be here and there in the grass. What? How fun, right? Put a few little thoughtful blades out there where just some dapple light maybe is picking up some stuff. And then back into what's going on down the center path. That's leaning in. If my brush isn't flowing, I'm just going to get it a little bit into my white paint or water and then come back again on the tip, and there you go. So that's the important thing, is to be able to troubleshoot what you have going on.
Mm.
Some around the school more in detail. We did it!
Turned out pretty good.
This is pretty awesome. Let's sign our painting.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna use one of my smaller signature brushes that's a little more detailed. Because it's challenging writing with a 4. All right, I'm gonna take this is a number 1 round, so it's a small little detail brush, it has a little point on it. And I'll come here in my light grass color. Because I don't want to make something that's just like crazy shining everywhere. A little water on that. There we go. We super did it.
I love it.
I love it too. Oh my gosh, guys. I cannot wait to see yours. Hopefully, you have really just enjoyed this year's Love Fall Art 2019. Be sure again to go check that hashtag, see the other creators, see what's going on out there. You never know who you're going to discover in a collaboration like this. And I hope you find at least one other favorite new creative that you love all the stuff that they make. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, and I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye bye.